Hello, everybody. Thanks for being there. We would love to have some of you at least on camera if possible, but if not, it's also thank you. Wonderful. Thank you for being there. I know it's a little bit after lunch and it's also June and everybody's ready to pack, but still it's good to take some time for ourselves, I think. And welcome to the third Artist Roundtable, which will deal with the artistic field dance. I will very quickly go through some of where the project Culture and Health Platform is coming from and why we are here for the ones who are new to the Artist Roundtables. And thereafter we will give the floor to our wonderful artists. My name is Cornelia Kish. I am working in Culture Action Europe as head of Culture and Health and leading the Culture and Health platform. And right now I'm going to share my screen to tell you a little bit about why we are here. Yes. So basically, just to understand, the whole journey starts with the so-called Culture for Health project that started in 2021, where we have, through an EU preparatory action, have written a Culture for Health project and the Culture for Health report. And as a follow-up, we have drafted in the Culture for Health report a set of recommendations where we thought that many of them actually could be implemented in the form of a Creative Europe Platforms project. And this is how the Culture and Health Platform came into being. It's a wonderful opportunity because it's a four-year-long project that just started in November 2024. And its main aim is to support artists working in the intersectoral field of culture, health, and well-being. Just to make you understand that before it was a culture for health, but there were some comments on maybe we are instrumentalizing culture, and therefore we now change it to the end. I also want to mention that we also have the CARE project being implemented, which is more about scaling up initiatives that have worked in the area of culture and health, and we are trying to replicate them in other contexts and scaling it up on European level. Sorry. Yeah. So this is to show you how many platform members we have. So we try to be very close to both the beneficiaries and also to the artists. Therefore, we are operating in 12 countries, but also on EU level. And one of the actions that you're experiencing now is actually what we call cross-border networking and online artist roundtables. So as you see, these are not at all limited to these countries, and also we will be having financial support also on EU level for projects for artists. So it is not for organizations. This call is specifically for projects implemented by artists, and we are also trying to support the capacities of artists. We have artist peer learning programs supporting the mobility of artists, and in each country we have these mentoring organizations which try to also help artists working in the field. This is a result actually also of the Culture for Health report findings and the discussions through roundtables with artists, practitioners, and policymakers. So we are trying to tackle some of the difficulties in the field. We cannot tackle all, but some of them. Without further ado, I'd like to give over the floor to our very first artist, Angela Pickard from the Canterbury Christ Church University, UK. I don't know, Angela, would you like to share the screen or shall I continue?
Do you want to? I'm happy to share if you want to. I can do that, or you can do that. I don't mind.
Excellent.
Shall I share?
Yes, thank
you.
Also introduce yourself as you know better.
Okay, lovely. All right, so hopefully, can you see those?
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so I'm Angela Pickard, and I am the director of the Sydney DeHaan Research Centre for Arts and Health. And that's at Canterbury Christ Church University in the southeast of England in the UK. I have a wonderful job, I think, because I can still practice as an artist, an educator and practitioner, but I also do research and evaluation along the way. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project that I've been working on for 4 years, actually, with adolescent young people in collaboration with an organisation called New Adventures Dance Company, led by Matthew Bourne. He is quite well known, and the company is quite well known globally. The Signet School, which is the grassroots training program that we've developed, started in 2021. It's also in collaboration with the Marlow Theatre in Canterbury. So what I've been doing is a 4-year longitudinal study exploring youth identity, belonging and mental health through dance. And it's carried out in partnership with New Adventures and the young people. So when we started this program, it was really because New Adventures came to me with a problem to solve, if you like. They found that a lot of people that were coming for audition were not as kind of diverse as they'd like. And most of their audition calls kind of attracted the same sorts of people. And of course, they're wonderful dancers and so on. But what they wanted to do was really start to diversify the sector a little bit more. They've done quite a lot of work with boys and young men, but they wanted to think a little bit wider than that, thinking about equity, diversity, inclusion. And so we brought together 15 young people aged between 13 to 17 at the outset of the project. And they were involved very much as co-researchers and co-creators as we evolved Signet School. And it's called Signet School because Swan Lake is one of Matthew Bourne's most famous pieces. It was made actually 30 years ago now. It has an anniversary this year. And the Signets actually did a curtain raiser very recently at the Marlow Theatre before the main show. So the project was really looking at contemporary dance with the repertoire that Matthew Bourne has been developing, so different kinds of repertory, thinking about storytelling as well, and really getting to know young adolescent dancers who had an interest in dance but may not have had very much access or opportunity. From a whole range of backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds, people identifying as disabled and neurodiverse as well. And we wanted to try and make sure we had a good balance of boys and girls, people identifying as boys and girls as well, and other gender identities. So we are now in residence at the Marlow Theatre in Canterbury.
I think you're not sharing your slides.
Sorry?
You're sharing your slides, but we only see slide 1.
Oh dear. I am forwarding.
I think we don't see the presentation. We are still in the mode where you can like change the slides, you know?
Okay. All right, so maybe I should, I'll stop sharing. Okay. How should we do this then? So I'm doing slideshow present from beginning. So I wonder is it better if you share the slides, do you think? Would that be better if you have them? I don't know what's the matter with my computer. When we tried them earlier, it was a little bit slow, so maybe that, I don't know.
No. Try to share again, let's see.
Shall I try? Okay.
I'm suspecting you had the presentation open in another window, and that's what you shared before. Oh, now we are slide 2. That's promising.
Okay. Let me see if I can do. Okay. Are you able to see the slides?
We just see slide 2 now.
Okay. Can you see slide 3?
No.
Then maybe click on slide 3 on the left side. of your screen? So,
I am. Yeah. Anything?
But otherwise, I'm happy to share.
Yes, I mean, I'm using the forward button, but it doesn't seem to be moving them for you. It's moving them for me, so I don't really know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, so if I stop sharing, I'm so sorry.
No worries, no worries at all.
Let me get rid of that. Okay, all right, let me try with this one then.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, right, now, can I move these, do you think?
I
No.
think what you would have to
Okay, I'll just have to tell you.
Go
All
on.
right, okay, so we can move on a slide, please. All right then. So we are in residence at the Marlow Theatre in Canterbury, which is very close to our university. And the Marlow Theatre is a touring theatre, so it's a very large theatre, and we're really pleased to be in residence there. The programme was launched in 2021, so we've been going for 4 years now. And as I said before, the young people are from varied social economic backgrounds, and most didn't know each other before they started Signet School. And we're very dance experience. And a key aspect of the work was that I developed or brought in youth participatory action research as our kind of key framework. And so as part of that, we were very much about a co-design with the young people, which is really important to us. Next slide, please. There we are. And so we came up with these sort of key areas that we wanted to focus on with the young people. So we wanted to develop a dance program with and for young people. And we wanted to nurture a diverse family of dancers with the key focus of community and belonging. So it was really important. The dance was really important to us, but actually the community and belonging was more important. The connection between the group was something we're really working on with young people. We wanted to find out, how they felt a sense of belonging, how we built a community, and so on. Next slide, please. And so youth participatory action research is a youth-led inquiry. So the young people help define the research questions, the method, the analysis, as we evolve the dance program. And it was very much about participation and power sharing. So lots of partnership with an emphasis on youth voice, agency and leadership. It was action orientated, so any research findings were reviewed after every session together, and the research findings were used to create the program. There was lots of reflective and transformative sessions. So we wanted to foster some critical thinking, some identity development, and social awareness amongst the participants. And lots of contextual and culturally responsive aspects to the work as well. So it's really important that our research together was grounded in the lived experience and cultural knowledge of the youth involved. So lots of participatory methods. We built in a plenary session to each of the monthly sessions when they came together. So they meet once a month for a whole day, and then they have a summer residency. And during the in-between times, we have an online platform for them where they can download different videos we've made during the previous month. And they can also use a Padlet to share ideas with each other as well, music choices, that kind of thing. Next slide, please. And so we built in these reflective sessions as part of the plenary as we built each day with the young people, and lots of participatory methods, including observation. So I was observing, other people in the team were observing, the young people were observing. We brought in reflective journals, lots of post-it note activities, word clouds, number choice clouds, scales rather, mood boards, emotion graphs, focus groups, photos, films, goal setting, and snap questionnaires. And again, the young people helped us develop these things as well. And we tested out lots of different ideas with them. And actually, one of the most successful is just the post-it note activity, which is really quite sweet, I think, after we tried lots of things. But they really like that short, snappy response. And then in the reflective journals, we could take those responses and get them to think a little bit more about those and really help us. Next slide, please. And so what we found worked with the young people was that we start every session when they come to us, we make sure we all do a meet and greet together. So we connect with each other, we notice and recognize each other, and then we do a check-in with each other to start with in a circle, making sure that we have some sort of theme to that. And again, different people lead that. So it could just be, you know, how tired are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10, or, you know, what's made you happy this month, or whatever it might be. And then we always start with a game. And again, the young people bring different games and they all lead different games. And the lovely thing about this is these adolescent young people love to play. And I think sometimes we forget that, you know, young people love to play. And they were saying themselves that they wish they had more playgrounds in their secondary schools because they love games and to play and connect with each other. There is some technique. So we do some contemporary technique and a fusion of different techniques. We have storytelling within that, using the narratives that are brought in from the repertoire of Matthew Bourne. Lots of creative work where they work on their own in pairs, in groups, and lots of little sharings and performances. Sometimes they're little short ones, and sometimes they're longer term ones working towards a theatre performance. Lots of reflection, and then we always end with a checkout at the end. And then they will have little goal-setting activities as well that they'd like to do with each other. The wonderful thing about this group is because we've spent a long time really recognising what young people bring into the space and their embodied identities, we've learnt a lot about what connects people and how they really use a sense of humour with each other in a really safe environment. And obviously knowing people's boundaries, knowing what can land okay with people. But that sense of humour has been really important, and that fun has been really important, and the play has been really important. And having an environment that really facilitates that, we found has been really, really useful. And so when it comes to sometimes some challenging aspects of building towards a performance, for example, they can support and challenge each other, and they do. And that's really lovely to see. So when someone gets a bit nervous, other people nurture around them, and that's been really, really lovely. Next slide, please. So the social belonging has been really important. So what we do when we bring our young people together is we always have food in the break. We always make sure they have a lunch together, and there's always social time within the day as well, where they can connect and so on. And we also take them on little trips to go and see things. And again, in the residency, they do things like escape rooms and things like this together. And that's, again, been really important to connect people and really value that social identity development together. And it's been wonderful to see how confident they've become. Next slide, please. And this is just a really nice quote that I think just sums up the whole thing. So what I like most about Signet School is the people, that is the artists who work with us and all the other Signets. I feel relaxed when I come to Signet School, and I feel I belong here. I can be myself, and when we have a great sense of humour and lots of fun together. And we can also take things seriously when we want to perform, and we can support and challenge each other to see what is possible. So this is just a taster of the project, of course. So other parts of the project is we've been really thinking about young people's mental health. So we've been using, again, as part of those little questionnaires and so on, some mental health surveys with the young people. But I think, again, what's been really important is this sense of belonging and community. And I think it's the final slide, is it? Yes. So this is something that's really evolved from the 4 years. So it's the kind of New Adventure Signet School development. And we've got the 10 Cs. I think probably we'll have to reduce them to a little less than 10. But again, these came through the young people. And so community, connection, curiosity, creativity, communication, care, Signet-centered pedagogy, content, choreography, and challenge were really, really important to our young people. And again, over 4 years, we've been delving into what each of these mean with and by the young people, really. Okay, next slide. There we are. There's my email if you want to find out more. Thank you so much, and thank you for your support with the slides.
My pleasure.
Let me just also take the opportunity to introduce Marie, without whom this Artist Roundtable would not be possible. Always finding last minute solutions. I'm just wondering if there are some questions from the audience to Angela. Really, this is the time to share. You can ask all type of questions. I'm interested a little bit of how you start. For example, when you say check in and check out, like
Yeah.
that is, I think, the hardest because they might put you in a box right away of how do you do that, and what are there some tips and tricks there?
Yeah, so when the young people arrive, they all meet together in a space. So they're sort of chatting and saying hello to each other and so on before they come up to the studio. When they come into the studio together, we're already there, and some people have come to meet them. Some of us are already in the studio, so we immediately make a connection and start chatting and making sure everyone's feeling okay, and settle in and so on. And then we bring everyone together in a circle. And as I say, there could be all sorts of things that we start with. So because they're adolescent young people, they have quite a heavy curriculum at school. And so some of them do come a little bit tired first thing, because often we meet on a Sunday. So they'll come a little bit tired. So we might start with, how are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? And they might say, okay, I'm feeling a 6, and then we'll say because, and they come up with something. Sometimes we just say, how are we feeling tired-wise today? And then they'll come up with a number. Sometimes we do a name and shape game. Sometimes we do pass the action. It's just something to kind of warm us up, really, in terms of being present in the space. Sometimes we do a game where we have to make eye contact with each other and cross paths and things like this. But most of the time, it's just a couple of minutes check-in just to say, how are we doing? And similarly, us as artists, we might say, we're really tired because we've had a busy week, or, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed because I've got lots of work to do. And we can also share how we're feeling as well. And that can be really, and again, if people don't want to say anything, they don't have to either. We can just pass on, and that's really not an issue at all, and no one judges that. That's absolutely fine too. And then at the end of the day, we do a checkout, and we do the basically, what are you taking away from today, or how are you feeling now? And quite often they may have come in feeling a little bit tired and a little bit overwhelmed from school and kind of just landing in the space. But at the end of the day, those numbers go up. So they often say, okay, I'm now feeling a 9, or, whatever it is. So that's been really interesting as well, just to track those. Sometimes we just get them to come in and they place their name on a chart to say what number they are today or something like that. We've done that as well. That can be quite helpful.
And how did you reach out to the youth, let's say? How did you find your audience?
Yeah, so we did a call, and we did a whole number of experience days. And then we just invited people to come along if they wanted to join us. So we have different things happening with our community groups that have come to those experience days. But then we invited this sort of group of 15 to see if they could help us evolve this program. And that's kind of how it came about. And we tried to invite people that offered us that nice kind of diversity in the room. So we had a nice mix of different backgrounds and experience and that kind of thing.
Meanwhile, did anybody come up with some further questions, queries, even comments?
Yeah, can I ask 2 questions? First is, how do you fund this? Who provides the funding for this initiative? And the second, what do you think has been the biggest challenge throughout the program?
So the funding has come from 2 funders. So we've got 2 funders that fund the whole program, and that includes all of the food and the social activities as well. So it is externally funded. But they have funded us for the 4 years, and they're funding us, continuing to fund us. So that's really lovely. They obviously come and are part of the sessions when they need to be, and so on.
Is it private or public funding?
It's a bit of both. Yeah, it's a bit of both. So we have one private funder, one public funder. Yeah.
And public on the national level or regional?
Yes,
or...
national.
Okay.
Yeah. And challenges. So the first year of the program was people coming out of COVID. So the first year of the program, we were still wearing masks. And so it was quite challenging to connect people together as a community when they didn't know each other. They'd been in lockdown for 2 years, basically. Then they're coming to a studio which they don't know, trying to evolve something which was a bit of a blank piece of paper at that time, and wearing masks. So that was the most challenging year, really. And then another challenge was that initially we decided to start the program earlier in the morning and finish a little bit later in the evening. And we soon learned from the young people that length of time was just too much for them on a Sunday when they were coming from school and getting really fatigued in the evening, and they still had homework and so on and so on. And so they helped us kind of reduce that, and they'd said they'd rather have a shorter period of time. And they also told us, how long they wanted a technique class for, how long they wanted to spend doing creative things, how long they needed to build to a performance, how long they needed to learn a new material, all sorts of things have come out. So it's been really useful. Yeah.
May I additionally ask if it was public funding? Was it the cultural side or the health side?
It's the arts side, actually. So, arts and humanities side. And then the private funder often funds health initiatives. So we've got a bit of both. Yeah.
Wonderful. Are there any further questions to Angela or?
Yes. Hello, my name is. I hope that I heard everything fine, but what I missed is to know a little bit exactly what is the difference from the thing what I know as community dance that came maybe 25 years ago to Germany. So maybe you can make some precise notes to make it a little bit more clear for me.
It absolutely is community dance in terms of the principles that underpin what we do. So it is very inclusive, and it is, very much dancer-centered. But I think what's different about this program is that it's evolved from the young people. And so, although we have some repertoire from Matthew Bourne's work, which we've shared, so they do learn little phrases of movement from that repertoire, which they then play with creatively, and they learn some of the techniques that might underpin some of that. So social dancing is one aspect, for example. So they had to learn the Lindy Hop for one of the pieces, and again we ask them, we say, would you like to do this piece of repertoire? How do you feel? They say to us if they want more musicians in the space, or whether they would like to have a dramaturg in the space, or whether they want to learn more around acting. So I think what's different about this one is that it's very much, we're really listening to the young people, and they are also listening to each other, and again making decisions together. So I think that's interesting. But absolutely, it is very much community. It does come from the community dance practice, I would say.
Thanks.
Yes, very much what is happening here is often like it's more about a new angle that actually recognizing that there are mental health and health benefits.
Yeah, exactly.
We do as well, but it's still the same type of social dance or community.
It is, yeah. I think just we've just brought the young people together as a group too. So they've developed confidence as in their own identity, really, in their own skin, I think, more because they've led more. And I think that's been lovely.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we will go to Roberto Casarotto now, who is working in Italy, and he is the president of Aerowaves. No.
Hello. I'm one of two co-directors. But yeah, we run Aerowaves, which is a platform that supports the development of international mobility for emerging artists.
Excellent. So can you tell us a little bit about your practice?
Yes, thank you, Cornelia. Thank you, Culture and Health, and thank you, Angela, for your beautiful presentation. Over the last 12 years, I've been developing in the northeast of Italy and later on at European and kind of global level, a practice of dance for people living with Parkinson's. And only lately we started to engage with a similar practice teenagers. So I would like to share with you something about these two experiences. So I will ask Marie if we can start with a video that will give you a context of where we work and is related to Dance Well, which is the practice for people living with Parkinson's that has been developed on a European level.
I'm sharing my screen.
Dance Well is about connectivity, interactivity, stepping into the unknown, and it's a slow revolution.
I think we are missing the sound.
So Dance Well is about, at the center is dancing with people living with Parkinson's. But around it, it's about artistry, beauty, building a community together, having encounters, and everyone bringing their skills together. So Dance Well started here in Bassano del Grappa in 2013. And this project, supported by Creative Europe, is going to spread the Dance Well practice into 4 other countries. There are 3 key stages of the project. The first stage is bringing all the dance artists together to develop a practice and go through a training to develop their own classes for Dance Well in each of the localities. The second phase is to create a production, a performance in each locality. And the final phase is to develop a digital publication with all the knowledge and experiences that we collect. At the beginning of the project, all of the dance artists and organizations that are involved in the project have come together to look at what skills they all have and then what can be built by bringing these skills together.
Maybe we can stop here, Marie, if it's okay. Yeah, I will share with you in the chat some links where you can see in full an appropriate way all the videos that we produced and some of the research that was developed over 3 years. But I will start back from what Dance Well is a dance practice for people living with Parkinson's. It's based on 3 pillars that make it a bit different from other experience developed all over the world. We work usually in museums or in sites rich in history, beauty, natural landscapes, gardens, architectural context where the environment can inspire the practice. We engage mixed groups, meaning not only people living with Parkinson's, but the wider communities. And the activity is offered free of charge all year round. So, for example, in Bassano del Grappa, where it started, it's never stopped over the last 12 years. And it's the same in the other 15 cities in Italy where it's in place, and in the other 6 cities in Europe, in 3 cities in Japan, and in 7 museums in Hong Kong. So what we share from the beginning is the responsibility of introducing a practice that literally changes people's lives, and sharing the responsibility of not setting an expiring end for this initiative. So it brings a kind of collective drive that layers the responsibility and the impact. So we work with artists that are dance artists, active dance artists, so people that also perform on stages and are connected to the real contemporary dance scene. And they go through a training where they acquire scientific information, so they're able to recognize different manifestations of neurological diseases or dysfunctions. So when people come to the classes, we never ask them if they have or don't have Parkinson's. We can kind of identify that. They go through constant training and development because as science develop new discoveries each year, we also discover how the artistic practice can impact in different way the way people live and what they take with them from a class. So we base the practice on improvisation and instant composition, and this is actually also recognized by the scientists as a meaningful tool to stimulate the neuroplasticity in the brain, meaning the capability of the brain to connect things. And they have evidence that when you initiate movement, it has a bigger impact than copying an existing choreography. We work in museums, so there's a constant neuroaesthetical input, and also the development of days. Therefore, we have to, develop relationship with the museum staff and find ways to inhabit it.
Uh-oh, is it stopping for everyone?
Every Mondays and Fridays.
Okay, maybe Mari, if you could drop him a chat.
Can you hear me?
No, but we missed that, I think, half a minute or so.
So did you hear when I said that we work with the museum staff to be able to dance in a museum during the opening hours?
No.
No? Okay. So Downswell brings together big groups of people in the museums, and the classes take place during the opening hours. So we have to develop ways to coexist, to cohabit the space. And at the same time, we have to develop ways for people to develop a sense of belonging to the museum, of feeling welcome in the museums, of feeling the kind of ownership for what is held in a museum. And this somehow trigger the civic identity or responsibility of museums and their staff. So next to this, there is the cohesive power of this initiative that gathers people that, due to the illness, are often isolating themselves. So people with Parkinson's, especially when it's just diagnosed, they tend to isolate. And coming to a class where you don't have to declare if you have or not a disease, where you find a group of people excited to dance together, becomes a vehicle for, reconnecting with society and often to build friendship. A bit like what Angela described before, the way people are welcome, the way people live the practice is part of the journey. It's an ongoing adventure, and I will start to share with you something about our fundings and publications. So you will find it in the chat. But what is interesting is that it's a practice that has been researched by scholars and researchers on cultural impact, by scientists that deal with well-being, health. Despite the fact that we always say it's an artistic practice and we want to, drive the artistry of it, there's also an interesting study that might interest some of you around the soft skills that dance activate and develop some people. There's even a map of the fact that when dancing, we are individually and collectively developing skills. So this is available in some of the links that I will share with you. We've worked with forcibly displaced artists from Ukraine and noticed how they develop collective practices and social practices that somehow gather people and they say heal people through dance. So that's also part of one of the publications that I'm listing in my links. But I wanted to briefly drive your attention to a new initiative, which is called Future Moves, that is aimed at connecting teenagers that deal with mental vulnerability and depression. We work on the phase of the initial stage of the illness and the stage when people go back to society. We don't deal with the acute phase. And basically, again, it takes place in museums. Again, the artworks becomes the imaginary, the images that somehow inspired the class. And for each class, some of the participants, some of the teenagers are invited to choose the artwork that will inspire the following class. And they are also invited to describe in their way what the artwork is about. And this, you can imagine, is creating a revolution inside the historical museums, because they deal with art from 1500, and the way they describe it or connect to it is not the way an art historian would do. So it's really inspiring, again, to see what is the co-designing of an initiative, what it can bring. And at the end of the day, what happens in those museums is that the guards that are in charge of the spaces often have to invite us to leave because they need to close the museum, and these teenagers don't want to leave. So I guess that's a very encouraging way. I think it's very much aligned with what Angela described about the involvement of teenagers, and it makes us also discovering how the physical practice of improvisation is somehow being addressed to specific needs of these groups. So, for instance, we work a lot with breathing exercises. We realize that, breathing is not a practice or is not an awareness that the youth is fond of. And and from there, it's a constant research. I think my time is ending. Am I correct?
Yes, but it was nice to hear what you're saying. Do you have any questions for Roberto?
I have a question about Roberto. Thank you very much for this fascinating story. I have a question. How do you, when approaching the museums, how is that communication going? How easy it is for you to get them involved in this sort of very untraditional, uncommon practice to integrate within the museum? That's my first question. And second question, funding. How do you fund this wonderful activities?
Thank you for your questions. Very lately, I would say that it's we've put in practice the idea of involving the museums from the very beginning, meaning that when somebody has the idea to bring such initiatives in a specific city, we want to engage the museums from the very beginning. We invite them to attend the practice and embody the practice, and then we start the discussion. We realize, for example, in Italy, but not only there, that there's a lot of new questions in the museum context about accessibility. And through these dance practices, they kind of discover the potentialities of their spaces, of their environments. And so I have to say that it's easier now than it was 12 years ago. So I would imagine that if there is a possibility to establish a dialogue from the very beginning, is much easier. We always share the documentations that you will find in the Dancewell website. It helps for them to see how you deal with these topics in other museums, and how we, for example, discuss with all the personnel in the museum how to inform the visitors. We inform them that there is physical practices that if, for example, there's a visitors group coming into a room where we're dancing, the teachers would probably gather the group at the center of the room, not to prevent the visitors to attend or do what they want to do. But most of the times, I would say 90% of the times, those groups join the class. So it's really interesting to see the behavior in the museums. These initiatives are funded, again, in a very diverse way. So there's a lot of public funds from the arts, from the local governments, from private foundations also. The European Union has funded a European project that is concluding this July. I would say mainly the culture field. We haven't yet received money from the health field, except for one of our partners in Florence, where a neuroscientist managed to put together the local health system of the city of Florence, a private clinic that studies Parkinson's and rehabilitation, the city council, and a cultural organization, and they created a sort of space called Casa Parkinson's, the House of Parkinson's, where on a daily basis there are several cultural activities for people that live with Parkinson's. That's the only example I can share.
And but so far, approaching like state hospitals, you haven't done that to kind of integrate them in some way.
That is interest now. Like we really were fond of preventing the artistic nature, because again, also in the measurement and study, I think the chat there's questions around the measurement. We realized that the protocols that they apply are not set for instant composition or improvisation practice. So there is a study back in 2014 that was held by the Fresco Institute for Parkinson's in connection with the New York University. So they studied how on a physiatric level a dance class would impact. The outcome was, I'll be very simple, that dance class and physiotherapy sessions are equal in terms of physical outcome, but the people are happier with the dance class. So that opened up the whole question: how do we measure happiness? How do we measure well-being? But now there is a group of neurologists that have started to, first of all, recognize the difference between dance practices, and they start to understand that tango is different than, you know, a ballet repertoire class. So they start to give language, also to scientific language, to these things. That's where the topic of neuroplasticity became a common ground. And they basically studied with some sensors how the body responded when stimulated with imaginaries and images. The outcome was that people were driving their body into places that were even thought impossible according to the stage of the illness. And the power of the imagination was driving the body, for example, to expand immensely. And that is a shock for, certain scientists. So they started to trigger that, and also to revisit what kind of protocols should be put in place to measure these practices. So there's a whole team of, they're mainly scientists in their 30s, I have to say. So it's a kind of new generation, in my experience, that is more open to deal with that at the moment. And also the other level that is interesting for us is that they start to look not only at the individual as a case, but they look at the collectiveness around them. So they start to see what kind of social life these people have, what kind of social engagement artistic practice generate, and that becomes the food for thought for their research. I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of time.
I'm actually thinking, since we are 14 in the room, we could actually just stay in this bigger group, because I think it's still okay to have a conversation, no? If everyone agrees.
Yeah, sure. I have a question actually for Roberto, if we have time.
Yes, but I think Angela was first, because I've seen.
Sorry. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Roberto. That was really lovely. So with two things. The first is, obviously, I'm very interested in the teenager work that you're doing. I just wondered how many you have in the class, in the museum at once, and how that's sort of facilitated. How many artists might you have with that group? I'm just thinking practically.
Yeah, so both in the dance well and in the future moves practice, we usually have one or two artists leading or co-leading. With the teenagers, we decided to go with two of different generations, so a younger teacher and an older teacher, and they would co-lead the practice. And there's always at least one or two people that assist according to the scale size of the group. So with dance well, sometimes we deal with 60, 70 dancers. We call them dancers. With the teenagers, because we started recently and we decided to do a 5 classes circle, according also to the school holidays in Italy. So we're starting again in September. We have a summer break at the moment. We, with surprise, we reach immediately 20, 25 people. And again, it's a practice that is open. So, you know, anytime people can come in. So the reason why we keep the assistants is to make sure that people, when they come for the first time, they're welcome, they're informed, they're told, you know, how to, you know, connect with what's offered. We tend to say that, you know, there's not a right or wrong way to respond to the tasks that are verbalized. We try to remind them that it's okay to sit down if they need to. But we try to also invite them to stay engaged, no matter if they sit, to find ways to stay engaged with what's proposed.
Super. And the Dance Well project, again, it's very interesting to see the differences and similarities in terms of Dance Well and Dance Futures, and the kind of work that we're doing here. So I really like because I did a Dance to Health project with older people who had falls, and our falls prevention integrated physiotherapy methods, which the older people tend to be prescribed, but they're quite boring exercises. So we integrated them into creative dance, and that was very successful as well. So I can see some real nice connections there. And similarly with the teenagers, that sort of physical and cognitive aspect, as well as the social. So it's really lovely. Thank you.
Maybe for everyone, it's important to acknowledge that on 14th of February 2024, the British Medical Journal published an article where the physical activity that they recommend people with depression is called dance.
Yes.
And, you know, I started to dig into that and to search for the people that published the article to say, what kind of dance, you know, do you relate to? And the answer was, you know, any dance that keeps people busy for an hour or whatever, where they don't have time to think of anything else. So that inspires the practice.
Lovely. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Kati, you had a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm very interested about the context where you actually do the dancing in the museums and the architectural context. Did you also include that in your research?
Yes. It is very much embedded in the practice, because all the artists try to find connections with the artworks or the context. So the imaginary, the images that we imply or use to trigger motivation and engagement are artistic works or architectural context. So there's a constant research done, and a constant discovery of different perspectives around an artistic work. And often the museum people are surprised about the way dance artists read certain works. It creates different narratives, of course. There's an ongoing research also on the language that we use, for example, to trigger movement. Lately, some teachers avoid naming the colors. I'll give you an example. And maybe, you know, they say, okay, we imagine we become a fruit and it has the color of strawberry in Iceland in June. And so the neuroscientists were super excited about this thing, because again, it triggered the imagination on several levels at the same time. And maybe that image is taken from, you know, a still life painting that is in the room. So it's again a very sophisticated research that stimulates as much as possible the brain and the physicality.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I wonder if the group in Holland where I am based, if they working with dance and Parkinson, if they also use these type of settings. Because I know in Holland, from all the arts and health initiatives that there are, that's the only one so far that's being reimbursed by insurance companies.
Yeah.
So that could be very interesting, I think, for them to also do it, unless they're doing it already. I'm not sure. And I have a question also, one last question about the Future Moves project with young people. So when you engage also in letting them, you know, choose an artwork and discuss the artworks, do you also include specific techniques like visual thinking strategies, or is it completely free form?
So far, we left it really open and wild, but we are collecting already information about how they do that and what they do with that. For example, after the third encounter, some of the girls that were somehow narrating the works to the group, they came back and they said that they felt more assured when in school they had interrogations, you know, like it happens in Italy. I don't know how it works in your systems, that you are in front of your class and the teacher asks you a question. And they felt that they felt more assured and in power because they've been narrating the artworks to their peers. And we were like, okay, that's already interesting that you noticed that after the third meeting. So we try at the moment only to observe and to collect what comes from them. But we're gonna include and involve an impact researcher from Fondazione Fitzcarraldo from September. And there we want to, you know, analyze several layers that at the moment we are only collecting. It was really like a pilot. We were not even sure if there would be a response on a local level. But yeah, it's really encouraging.
Yeah, and the example you gave from this one girl, and that's actually, I've heard something also that happened in VTS, visual thinking strategies, because there's no right and wrong, right? Because you all observe when you describe what you think is happening. So what you see is totally different than what I see, and it's all good.
Yeah.
So that's very nice. Thank you very much.
Can I ask one more quick question? I have a question. So regarding what type of museums you work with, is it just arts museums? Is it also science? Like, if you could just categorize the type of venues you work with, and architectural sites. Do you also work in the nature, like in the natural landscape? Because you kind of mentioned this, but if you could just filter down the types of venues.
So there's historical museums that, you know, hold all the historical arts. There's botanic gardens, so you connect with nature. There's historical parks, so they may have statues and that kind of decoration. There's contemporary museums. In Japan, there is a museum that collects art created by people with mental vulnerabilities. So they work with the mental hospital, and it's incredible artworks. We work with Palazzo Strozzi in Florence, where there's a constant change in exhibitions. So some classes, for example, were held inside the Marina Abramovic retrospective. So that was kind of challenging, and how to find, you know, creative beauty and stimulations in some hardcore topics. And in terms of architecture, sometimes we deal with historical or contemporary spaces where, again, is the lines, the environment, the light, sometimes the shapes that really inspire the classes. And this is because, first of all, the teachers alternate, so you don't have, you know, the same teacher all the times. And also the spaces in many cities alternate for many reasons. Because we offer this initiative on a regular basis, sometimes, you know, a museum needs to set up the next exhibition, so you need to go into a deconsecrated church for 2 weeks. And that, you know, generates the kind of appreciation of diversity.
Well, thank you so much for your insights. Meanwhile, we've been reflecting with Buddy.
Sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I think Milena wanted to ask a question just before we start.
Go ahead.
Milena, is that correct? Or oh, it cannot hear you. Unfortunately, we cannot hear.
And you don't seem to be unmuted, so it's some audio problem then.
Maybe you can type your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. I was manipulating. And so, Roberto, I have a question for you. Do you have a follow-up? I see that you are very focused also on research regarding the Dance Well. Do you have a follow-up regarding the longer-term impact on, people with Parkinson? You mentioned isolation. So do you have information about how it goes after once the program or the participant, the dancers, and your sessions, how their life are unfolding?
We don't have a long-term research, but we have the attendance of people, meaning that some of those who started 12 years ago are still coming. There's no an expiring end. We have lost some participants because it's also a degenerative illness. So we also developed some thoughts on how to deal with that, both on an artistic level for the teachers and the group. And you will find information in the website of Dancewell about that. What is interesting is the recognition that it really helps people to live better. This is what has been universally collected so far, but we haven't unfortunately been able to monitor how for the last 12 years the first participants have, stayed connected or on a health level, what happened.
Thank you. And congratulations. It's very fascinating work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we were thinking in the background that, of course, part of the Artists Roundtable is not to have this one-sided approach, but really to engage in a conversation. And in that case, maybe it's better to go to breakout rooms because then we just have five people to introduce ourselves. I just wanted to tell you a little bit of what we were thinking about the part that is upcoming now. So what we would do in the breakout rooms is a little bit of really to enable exchange further as we did before, learn from each other and ask and provide advice. So what the first part would be to really everybody would introduce themselves, where they're coming from, which country, what you do in about 1-2 minutes, and then really just have conversation about what you think is key for working in the arts and health and especially in this dance area. Did you encounter pitfalls yourself so that we can learn from each other and also maybe give some advice to others? The recording will be stopping now.